Well, my mother always said I was a born genius, so confidence was never what I lacked. I used to work for my uncle, who had a distribution house and a cinema in Copenhagen that was art cinema. And around that time, I'd been kicked out of acting school in New York, and I'm very dyslexic, so I couldn't really finish school because of that. And also colorblind, so I didn't have a lot of options. So when you grow up in New York and you all need to rebel, that's part of being young, is to rebel against your parent, your authority. But it's very hard to rebel against my mother and stepfather, that whole family unit, because they were really great. And my mother had photographed Miles Davis and Jimi Hendrix. So she'd been through the whole 60s revolution and the 70s, so what did I have to offer? But there were two things my mother detested, and it was American violence and Ronald Reagan. So very early on, Ronald Reagan and American violence became my thing, because it was the only way to piss off my mother. Later on, when I was back in Copenhagen and the acting school had kind of imploded, or I imploded it, because, I'd broken a table in a scene in some moment and I wasn't invited back. So I would work for my uncle. I would go to Cannes and I would look at movies and I would try to come up with ideas that he should buy for his company. So my real introduction to the film industry was in the market. It wasn't during production, it wasn't being part of making movies. It was purely from watching and selling movies, like market-wise, what would sell. And one day, Kevin Smith, the director, was showing his first movie there, Clerks. And I was supposed to watch those kind of movies for my uncle. And I went to see it, and afterwards, my attitude was like, I can do that. So I was 23 or 22, and I was like, I'm going to make the first Danish independent movie. Because at that time, the Film Institute really controlled everything in terms of what was in production. And the attitude of do it yourself really wasn't around anymore. Danish film wasn't very sexy either, so no one was really interested. It was before Lars von Trier to break the waves and so forth, so there hadn't really been that attention to Danish cinema. So I came home and I said, Mom, I need some money. And so she was going to give me 70,000 euros. Woo. My uncle had a cinema, and my stepfather had a 16mm camera. And I knew from the market-wise, crime sold. So if I could make a gangster picture, that was a commercial commodity. And I, not really knowing it was going to happen, and I did a short film version, and I used that as an application to go into the National Film and Television School, because I wanted, I guess, you had to go to film school. That was what my father, who had gone to film school, that whole generation had gone to the same film school, always told me. And I didn't get in at the National Film and Television School, thank God. And then I got into the Danish Film School. And that was, of course, a huge opportunity. But then, miraculously, I met a producer who said, well, I know you're making this film really independently. I think we can get some money from the government if we apply. And I said, great, let's do that. And we did, and miraculously, the government gave us a grant of like 500,000 euros to produce the film. And I had nothing to show for it, so this will never happen again because they've changed the rules so many times now. So you really can't just walk off the street and get government money this way. So I was just very, very lucky. But I couldn't get a crew because nobody thought I could make a movie. And even my father said to me, "You don't know how to make a movie, you haven't gone to film school." But I'm a New Yorker by heart. And I always felt, you know what, fuck them. I'll just do it my way then. And that was the attitude that I made my first film with, which is a very important attitude to have when you start in the industry. You have to have an enormous amount of arrogance and believe in yourself, because the first time is in a way the best time. Because there is not all the fears and paranoias and success or failure that comes with it afterwards. It's that first time where you just make it with the confidence of your basic God-given gift to mankind. So I made the film like that, and luckily it was very successful. It took some time, internationally, because at that time Danish film was very unsexy. And but it was an important lesson in that, whatever you do, especially the first time, maybe you don't have the talent or the expertise, but as long as you have the arrogance, you're going to be okay.
Ooh.